Hello, everybody. Alanna Kaivalya here. It is a pleasure and an honor to bring you this live broadcast of Rooted Radio. This is the twice monthly live Q&A experience that happens right inside of my Rooted membership, specifically through thesatisfiedwoman.com and is a way to bring to life everything in my book, The Way of the Satisfied Woman, and to give you all the help that you need to walk the way of the satisfied woman. So today we are kicking off with a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is all about the feminine art of receiving. Now, this is something that comes up a lot for the women that I work with, comes up a lot for the women that I talk to, and it's something that typically keeps us a little bit stuck in old ways of thinking and being, which really revolve around that old school patriarchal value that says women are most valuable when they continuously give themselves away. So the more we overgive, the more we overdo, the more we just divest of our energy, our resources, our time, we then are included. It's how we belong in spaces. And there then becomes this fear, this almost self-fulfilling prophecy that if we don't just continue to give ourselves away, that we won't be needed and we will be discarded. And I understand that that's actually happened to people. I know that that's a real fear, that that's not, you know, an unknown fear or it, but the problem is that everybody buys into this narrative. So when people buy into the narrative and when those on the other side of the coin are just taking from us and not giving back, and we are only accepted when we give, it perpetuates this cycle. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring to you all today are some ideas and structures and even some scripts around how to stop that. Because if there's one thing that I know from working with women in my private coaching or in my community, or through the research that it took to get this book to bring it to life, is that women are exhausted. Women are exhausted. And if that's you, if you're here with me live, raise your hand and let me know that you're exhausted. Let me know what's happening with you. Let me know if that feels true and right and authentic for you. I don't know a woman who isn't in some way exhausted. Yep. I saw a hand raised. Exactly. We're indoctrinated into this. And one of the things that's so challenging about being constantly exhausted as a woman is that it depletes us. It brings our energy levels down, and it's no wonder that 80% of women today report feeling burnt out. Now, burnout is not a medical diagnosis. It's a self-diagnosis. It's something that we talk about in terms of how we feel every day, that when we wake up, we feel tired. That when we, begin a new adventure, we're already tired. That as soon as we begin something, it becomes an exhausting experience. And that's because we're constantly overgiving, constantly overdoing without really receiving. And a principle of femininity, a principle of feminine energy is receptivity. It is receiving. It is taking in. It is having the masculine be generous with us and allowing for that generosity. I think a lot of us have been trained and gotten used to being a little bit scared or even a lot scared of receiving. What happens if I do accept generosity from the masculine? What happens if I do accept abundance? Many of us have really been conditioned that we are not meant to receive and that receiving can actually be dangerous. That receiving comes with a catch. Receiving couldn't possibly just be generous. That receiving means suddenly you owe someone, and then it continues to hook you in to that loop of overgiving. So you'll see that what's happening with this continual narrative here is it's entrapment, really. It's entrapment. We're programmed to overgive. Those around us are simply programmed to take, take, take. And now, whether that is your masculine counterparts, whether that is the business or the company that you work for, constantly asking you for more hours, clocking overtime. I actually just had a conversation yesterday with a young woman who was telling me that she got fired from a job as a yoga teacher because she showed up late to teach her class. And I said, "Oh, I said, how late did you show up?" And she said, "Well, the class hadn't started yet, but I'm supposed to arrive 30 minutes early before the scheduled start of the class, and I only arrived 10 minutes early. And that was late, so I was fired." And I informed her that under the labor laws of America, if you are a 1099 employee, you are only required to be at your job at the actual hours you are being paid to work. So that 30 minutes early is you giving yourself away. There's nothing that states that you're required to be there. You're not required to show up early. You're not required to show up late. You're not required to put in the overtime out of the goodness of your heart. You're not required to work more than what it is you are supposed to in terms of whatever your contract is. And yet, we have almost this, and it is a very masculine, but this almost competitive mindset in the woman who gives herself away most wins. She's the most valuable, even though she's completely depleted and burnt out. She's the most rewarded, even though she doesn't even have the time or energy or capacity to receive those awards. And by the time she receives those rewards, she's afraid of what they mean. She's afraid of what the catch is for those rewards. I mean, we've all heard that phrase, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Well, we don't need it to be free, but we do need it to be equitable. And we still live in a modern culture that says women are less valuable. And there are proven statistics around that. Women to this day still make 80 cents to every dollar that a man makes. And what that means is there is an across the board cultural agreement that women are just worth less. So, in order for us to make that full dollar, we make it up by actually working harder. So, these are the big uphill battles that are challenging to us all. These are the big uphill battles that women face, no matter where you are, no matter what end of the, um, country you're on, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. We all have this challenge. This is just a part of the world we live in, right? The numbers don't lie. So it's not something I want women to live with anymore. And while changing the entire culture is going to be a process, it does start with us as individuals. And this is one of the things that I highlight here in the way of the satisfied woman and in my membership community, Rooted, that we are still living in a culture that doesn't value us properly. And we can't change it overnight. But what we can do are make baby steps, little strides toward at least changing the culture of our immediate vicinity, really heavily and finely curating our spaces, our communities, our places around us, so that at least our individual everyday lives start to improve, start to give us place to rest, a place to receive, a place to be seen fully for who we are and valued at least more than the rest of the world. And what happens when we curate our spaces, when we take care of our immediate world as much as we can, that has a ripple effect. Or I'm loving this term, a glow up. It's a glow up effect. And I've been reading about this term in terms of like a post breakup, how inevitably and annoyingly people get hotter after the breakup because they're now out of whatever crush, toxicity, detrimental environment they were in. They're now out of the sadness and the pressure that that relationship ultimately ended as a result of. And that freedom causes them to glow up. They start working out. They start dressing better. They're not wasting all that energy on the shit show that was the relationship. And now they've got energy to focus on themselves. So I think we can have that in our life as well, in our daily life as well. And, again, it's going to require each of us as individuals, ladies, to do the work ourselves. And trust me, I know how annoying that is because we already do so much emotional labor anyway. Women are the emotional regulators of their spaces. They're the emotional regulators of their relationships. They're the emotional regulators of their families. That is by nature of our feminine energy. That is part of who we are and what we do. And it's an uphill battle right now because there's such an imbalance and distortion of healthy masculine and healthy feminine. Okay. So while I hate to ask us to do more labor, it's a big reason why I have the Rooted membership. And if you haven't joined yet, now is your chance. You better do it. Um, so that I can help and assist and support in this glow up, in this curation, in giving you a boost as far as how to make sure that you're not just continuing to give your energy away. It's time to take it back. So curation is a big piece of that. Um, it's a huge piece of that. And it's okay to say no to people who are not honoring your time or your energy. It's okay to challenge the status quo and, even fire people um, that don't belong in your space. It's okay to not pick up the socks anymore. I know I use that metaphor a lot, but it seems to be a common complaint that whoever's in your house, in your space, they don't pick up after themselves. And something that I hear from women quite a lot is if I don't do it, no one else will. Well, this is probably the first thing I'm going to challenge with you today in this Rooted Radio experience. If I don't do it, no one else will. Well, I guess the next question is, what would the worst case scenario be if you just didn't do it? I had a coaching client yesterday. We were talking about this. She has a masculine partner. She has four children. Her parents live upstairs, so she's got quite a full household, and she has really taken on the full burden of micromanaging everyone in this household. She's giving her energy, she's giving her time, she's giving her organizational skills, she's giving her planning, she's giving her control over everything in this household. And even to the point where her masculine partner, the father of her child, she's reluctant to allow him to take over some of the childcare activities because he just doesn't do it good enough. And there's no harm. This isn't a harmful space, just to be clear. That's a different conversation. She just would prefer he do it differently. And so we ran through this worst case scenario of, look, you are exerting a lot of energy. You've already identified that you're burnt out. You're giving too much. You're giving all of yourself in every direction. And that actually is control, by the way. And I know that control often has like a negative connotation. When someone is controlling, we feel like they're controlling for the wrong reasons or to our detriment. I think it's really different for many women that control is actually it's we're trying to control things for the highest good of others. But there's a trick there because when we're controlling, we're not giving them the freedom to either learn or choose for themselves. We're not giving them the opportunity to fail a little bit and to rise up. We're not giving them the opportunity to really step into their healthiest expression of either masculinity or femininity. So when we run through this worst case scenario idea, right? What happens if I don't do the thing? The thing that if I don't do it, I can already feel the panic rising because I want to control it. And if I don't do it, it won't get done. You know what? Maybe it doesn't get done. Maybe they don't have socks next week. What's the worst that can happen? They either wash the socks or they start wearing flip-flops and eventually they still wash the socks. If I don't make dinner, no one else will. Well, okay, you've got a pack of salad in the fridge. Happily munch on that and see what they end up doing. I bet Domino's delivery becomes your family's best friend. and it solves the problem. It may not solve it in the way that you want, but control is a drain on our energy. And I understand. Trust me. Please hear me, ladies, when I tell you that I understand how difficult it is to let go of that perfectionism, to let go of wanting things to be comfortable, of wanting things to be safe. I find a lot of women exert this control, this desire to hold on, this constant overgiving, because it provides us and always has provided us a level of safety, right? It keeps us safe because we haven't really had others help us with safety. And for the feminine woman specifically, safety comes from the masculine energy of protection. When there's someone there to protect us, to have our back, to be there for us. It's difficult, especially in this culture, to do it all ourselves. And that's been another great detriment to many women, myself included, the women that I coach, the women in my membership community, the women that I've worked with, the women that I interviewed for the book, you know, that it's difficult in this modern culture to provide that level of safety for ourselves because this culture wasn't built for us. It wasn't built for us. It wasn't built with our safety and well-being in mind. So it's hard for us to do it. It often puts us in a more masculine role of control to try to get that safety. So I understand that there's a lot of challenging things to navigate. I understand that we may not be able to get all the way to the finish line, but I promise you that even with little tweaks, you'll see improvement. And that's better than it was. And it's better than being stuck where you are now. And it's better than going through to the edge of burnout where there really is no recovery. You don't want to get to that place that repair isn't possible, whether it's repair in your relationship, repair in your health, repair in your career, in your business. Going right through to the edge of burnout often leads to bad things, especially for women. Um, autoimmune disorders hit women far harder than they do men. And there is a lot of research around that as a result of chronic prolonged stress on the female body and how it affects our hormones, our gut, our immune system. And it's not that the stress causes the autoimmunity, it's that whatever is latent in us gets turned on with that kind of chronically applied stress. So, let this just be a warning that burnout is really not an option. And while we can't necessarily, I mean, maybe, look, I want it for all of us, get all the way to the finish line of, look, let's just be in a world that honors the feminine and get to the point where we are completely receptive, there are things you can do. And I say it that way because if you are an overwhelmed woman, and these are the women that I work with high achieving, overwhelmed women who, from all outside perspectives, have their shit together, but really on the inside are dying. They find themselves, they feel themselves withering away a little every day, or that they feel just so hardened to the world around them they can't relax and actually just enjoy their life. Let's start with a little bit of enjoyment. Let's start with a little bit of receptivity because the feminine is receptive. It's meant to be receptive. And to receive means that we have to hold the space. And I like doing this gesture like a little vessel. If you think literally of your human form, your physical female form, you are a receptacle. You receive penetration during intercourse. You receive the impregnation if you plan to get pregnant, right? We are receivers. We are the harbinger of life energy. We carry that within us. And so we are the receivers. We are meant to receive that generosity from the world around us. But if we always chase and give, we actually don't even get to tap into our own life force. We're moving into a distorted masculine version of ourselves. And we're not really getting into that feminine, creative, abundant, receptive version of ourselves, which is where relaxation, creativity, pleasure arise. That's where we experience the joy of life for the feminine woman. That's where it comes from. If you're trying to experience joy and pleasure in that distorted masculine, holding all the things, doing everything for everyone else form, good luck. That is a position of tightness, tension, shutdown. So we've got to get into the receptivity. And this is going to impact your relationships, your intimate relationships, your family relationships, your community relationships, the way that you move in the world, the way that you move in business, the kind of business you do, the kind of business that you create. So this work is really central to a whole satisfied life. Because one thing that I know unequivocally about women is that if one element of your life isn't bringing you satisfaction, it's very difficult to compartmentalize and find joy in the other areas. It's like that old phrase that I love repeating: if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Well, the research actually shows that that's the case. Remember, in the beginning, I said women are the emotional regulators of their space. So if emotionally we're tense, if we're stressed out, if we're depleted, if we're exhausted, if we're burnt out, that actually has a ripple effect on everyone else around us, no matter what relationship it is. We can't move into a space without a sense of relaxation, freedom, ease, safety, security, being cherished by the world around us, trusting where we are. Those are essential. So this place of receptivity is really key. And it's a nervous system reset is really what it is. Okay? Because this when I talk about masculine and feminine energies, they're energies of your psyche. They're psychological energies. They're inbuilt, ingrained within every human. They're just a universal principle, just like light and dark, up and down, as above, so below. There's always going to be this oppositional energy. We call it masculine and feminine, and they have different fundamental qualities. They're recognized throughout history, throughout culture, and they're often just talked about in those terms, masculine and feminine. If you think of the Eastern wisdom, that beautiful yin yang shape, that's a representation of the masculine and feminine. I have a long background in yoga and spirituality. There's a lot of talk about the chakras. Those are a representation of the masculine and feminine. We find them in different religious and mystical principles, and it's just an understanding that there is this duality within us that we all have to contend with. And for each of us as a human, we're going to lean more toward one of those energies or the other. Now, it's 2025. Any human in any body can lean toward any energy that they want. All forms of individuality and self expression are awesomely okay. I just happen to speak to women who lean into the feminine polarity or who want to be more in their feminine because they've been saddled with that heavy masculine armor and they are so fucking done. They're so ready to drop it. So when you've been wearing that masculine armor, when you've been overgiving, when you've had the guilt of, oh my gosh, if I don't do that, it won't get done. When you have felt safest when you're in control, but also exhausted because no one will pick up the slack, that's nervous system dysregulation. That's a state of chronic stress. Now, what that's going to feel like for most of us is normal. It's going to feel normal for most of us. It shouldn't be. We got to get out of that as normal. And that's going to take some inner work. Okay. So this is the kind of work that I do with women, whether it's one-on-one coaching, whether it's inside my Rooted membership, which by the way, there's a link right here for you to click to join and get $20 off of your month's membership fee. So click that link now. Make sure you join me inside of Rooted so that you can start to downregulate your nervous system, so that you can start to get rid of this chronic stress, so that you can get the tools that you need to really lean into the feminine, to become the receiver. Because what happens when you overgive, what happens when you stay in this dysregulation, what happens when you stay in chronic stress, what happens when you keep chasing after is you never receive. You're filling the space. So imagine if you've got a vessel here, but you're always filling it, the world cannot fill it for you. Your relationships cannot fill it for you. If you're looking to attract the right partner, you can't fill that space. You have to hold it open and wait for them to be generous and arrive. If you're trying to make money or start a business, you can't go after it. You have to hold that space and wait, because feminine receptivity is abundance. The way that women make money is different than the way that the masculine man makes money. They make money by chasing and going after, increasing profit margins, measuring KPIs, looking at the data, goals, parameters, SOPs, you name it. That's cool. They've got it. They've been doing it a long time. That burns us out. We create businesses differently. We create businesses where we invite, we attract, we allow, and that allowance becomes abundance. And I ain't saying we don't need to make lots of money. Ladies, let's make all the money. We're just going to make it with a different energy. We're going to make it with an energy that is in alignment with our ability to receive, because that's where our creativity comes from. And that creativity that is within us all as feminine women, our ability to create something from almost nothing, that's some of the most lucrative, valuable energy out there. Women create businesses from their creativity. And you cannot be in your creativity if you're wearing that masculine mask of chasing and overgiving. It literally kills your abundance. So I hope that you can see and understand the importance of you finding ways of downshifting into your femininity, being in a receptive nervous system state, not fight or flight, not this fear state, not the state of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be discarded or devalued if I don't keep giving myself away, of allowing support, love, help, pleasure, rest. Because if you allow for it, right, if you hold this receptive vessel open, then the universe has no choice but to fill it. And here's why. Okay, fun fact, guys. Back in college, I studied physics. Yes, I did. Physics and astronomy, hence the stars. You'll see me wearing stars quite a lot. That's a holdover. I used to take the telescope up to a ski resort and hold star parties so that people could look at the stars. I love stars. Okay, I loved physics. And there's a principle in physics. It's a science principle. It's true. Okay, the universe hates a vacuum. It hates a vacuum. If a vacuum appears anywhere in the universe will literally shift all of its molecules, particles, whatever it's got to fill that space uniformly. Okay, so even the universe is in agreement with this feminine masculine principle. The masculine's job is to give and be generous. The feminine's job is to receive with abundance, with graciousness. Pretty basic. And in the receiving with graciousness, everyone is enlivened. With the generous giving from that big masculine heart, everyone is enlivened. This isn't us just checking out and sitting on the chaise lounge and eating bonbons, although I do love that too. There's still an active participation in this receptivity, but it's going to require you, ready for the shift? It's going to require you to find places in your life where you can let go of control. Now, if I'm honest, even as I say those words, I can feel a little panic start to arise. Okay? I'm sure it's arising for you too. Like, oh God, you know, find the smallest thing that's not going to completely let your world fall apart. I had this wonderful experience with a coaching client who I was working with to help figure out whether she was going to stay or go in her toxic relationship. It was a 10-year long marriage. And we talked about this idea of control. And one of the things that she was most challenged by was the fact that her masculine partner just would not clean the kitchen. And for her, an unclean kitchen was like a cluttered mind. She could not progress throughout her day until the kitchen was clean. And I said to her, I was like, what's the worst that could happen if he doesn't clean the kitchen? Well, then I get upset and I have to clean the kitchen and it takes my time out of the morning and then it basically ruins my whole day. And I said, okay, tomorrow we're not cleaning the kitchen. We're not cleaning the kitchen. Panic. So she and I worked through the panic. I said, you got my text. You'll text me. You'll let me know. We'll talk about it. But we're not cleaning the kitchen. I said, what's the worst that could happen? Well, then it won't be clean. And if it's not clean, then I can't make dinner. I said, okay, get your favorite delivery on speed dial. You're not making dinner, right? You're not making dinner. Well, the good news is it took her masculine partner exactly one day to step into that vacuum that she created. You want to know how she created it? I'm going to give you essentially the script for how to do this with people around you. Okay? Because one of the things, I mean, look, there's a lot of ways in which we as individuals, as women, can shift into this receptivity and to stop controlling little things throughout our day or throughout our life. But I find that some of the deepest triggers for us as women are the other people in our life. We don't exist in a vacuum. You know, there's this real kind of modern culture, pop culture argument idea that we have to be able to do everything ourselves. It's a very DIY culture. You know, you've got to heal yourself. Just choose yourself. Oh, love yourself. Okay, well, except we've got all these other people around. And as humans, we are relational beings. We actually do better in relationship, particularly the feminine woman. The feminine woman is not great in isolation for long periods of time. Even the masculine man is not great in isolation for long periods of time, but he can do better than the lady. So, my guess is that there are people around you, colleagues, friends, family, partners, workers, whatever, that you're giving yourself away to. And so, here's the script to create the vacuum, the receptive vacuum, that's going to help you stop controlling, which is a distorted, toxic, distorted masculine armor that we wear, and I get that it brings safety, but we're going to try something different. So the script is this. As the feminine, we live. We live for and in and through our feelings and our emotions, our intuition. That's our driving principle. That's our decision maker throughout life. We feel when things are right or not. Masculine is through logic and reason. And we've been tricked to think that we have to logic and reason our way through things. We don't. We're going to stop. Logic and reason can help us get to a finish line, but let's not let them make the decisions. So when we live in our feelings, when we live in our intuition, the question is, you know, if the kitchen isn't cleaned, if the socks don't get picked up, if I don't pick up my family member for their fourth soccer practice this week, you know, if I don't do these things that are actually draining me, what's the worst that could happen? How would I feel if someone else just did them? So if the kitchen were cleaned, boy, I would feel so relaxed. Or if the kitchen were cleaned, would you feel cherished? Would you feel loved? Would you feel supported? If you think about the feeling, the experience of this thing being done, you have to name it. Stay in your feelings because that's how you stay in your feminine. Look, beloved masculine partner, lovely family member, challenging boss, awesome friend. I would feel loved, cherished, happy, at ease, more calm if the kitchen were cleaned in the morning, if the socks were picked up, if you wouldn't mind driving yourself to the airport. You name the feeling, you name the action. Okay, so the feeling is the feminine, the action is the masculine. You name the feeling, you give the action that you'd like to be done. And then here's the hard part, ladies. You ready? You're going to stop talking. You're going to stop talking. There's the vacuum. There it is. You're just going to let that rest. You're going to put that out there and you're going to hold that vacuum open. You are going to hold that receptive space open and wait until it comes in. And your hard part is going to be that you cannot rush in. If you suddenly then fill the vacuum after you've made the request, well, then they all know that that vacuum is useless. They all know that you're going to collapse. Oh my gosh, and I work with so many women who collapse. Again, this is why we have the rooted membership. Because if you need to collapse, collapse inside that sacred, safe container of that membership with me and let me help you through it. And then hold out that vacuum for all the rest of the world. Okay. We will work through the collapse. You go hold your vacuum open. All right. So this collapse is real. But what it does is it trains the world that you're just going to take care of it. There's no, oh, she said something and it's don't worry, I'm not going to do it. I I heard a joke recently. I hope you guys will resonate with this. Ladies, you don't have to ask your man, you don't have to ask your man to do something every 6 months. As in, like, it's not going to get done for 6 months unless you keep asking him to do it. A big complaint we hear from masculine men is that women nag or complain, right? We're always asking for these things to be done. Maybe it's the way that we're asking. And maybe it's that we don't hold that space open. And maybe it's that we show the world, not just our beloved partners, anybody. We show the world that even if we ask and we're kind of annoyed by it, that we're going to go ahead and get it done anyway. So the only consequence they have is a little bit of annoyance with repeated asking, but they don't actually have to do it because they know you're going to do it anyway. So in the art of receiving, which is the topic for today's Rooted Radio, and there are many ways in which I teach the art of receiving, but this is one of my favorite ways. And I was just asked actually this morning in a comment on one of my posts inside the membership to give a script, which is why I'm offering this today. This is how we do it. This is how we ask. You show the world how to treat you, right? And I understand it might take some baby steps. We might try with little things, socks, kitchen cleaning, laundry, airport pickups, soccer practice, um, or you could go for the big things too. I would feel really cherished and chosen if you would just break up with the other woman. And then you stop talking. And then you leave it at that, right? That's a big leap. We could make it. You're going to find out for you based on your own state of nervous system dysregulation what ask is the right first step. Okay, where on the brink are you? Because really, if we name it, any kind of burnout is a brink. You're on the edge. You're on the edge of something not good, or the edge of retreat into yourself, coming back home to your femininity. And look, femininity isn't soft. It's strong. Not strong as in overpowering. Not strong as in pushing through things we were never meant to push through. Not strong as in, I will just carry the load of everyone else. It's strong in the way that water cuts through rock. Rock is strong. Water is strong. They're different kinds of strength. We hold that flow. We don't chase. We don't overdo. We don't collapse. We don't carry the things that aren't ours. And I know it's going to feel different and harder to do this thing where we are receptive, but ultimately that's what's going to reconnect us to our internal sense of femininity. So again, we name the feeling. I would feel so cherished. I would feel so loved. I would feel so at ease. I would feel so safe. Oh, I would feel so able to trust if this action were to be done and then you stop. You lay the ask out there and then you stop. And your stop is still a communication because I know we love to chat. I know we want to continue to over explain and talk about things and make deals or concessions, but that's all collapse. Okay? No collapsing. You hold open that receptive vessel, and that is a communication to whoever we're talking to that this is it. I've created this space. Are you going to step up to fill it? Now, they may not, right? The women that I coach through toxic relationships, we create the invite for the healthy masculine to step up. We have to get women who are in these toxic relationships out of the patterning first, get them back into a safe feminine space, and we'll see if the masculine rises up and shifts. And sometimes they don't, right? We don't know. But if someone isn't able to fill the space that you create, if someone isn't able to be generous with you, you'll find out. Give them an opportunity, you'll find out, and then you get to make that decision of heavy curation. Now, the feminine is strong and fierce and wild and unpredictable. And I have a doctorate in mythology and psychology. And one of my favorite myths is a Hindu myth of a goddess, Kali. And she's fierce, she's a goddess, right? I think in the West, we think often of goddesses as just being like, soft and breezy and in the flow. Nope. Goddesses are fierce. They get shit done. They're not messing around. And Kali beheads people. She just cuts their head off. She goes around with this giant scimitar, and if they're not doing something right, if they're too in their ego, if they're too narcissistic, if they're too toxic, if they're not treating people well, if they don't have empathy, off with their heads. Like the Red Queen, off with their heads. That's it. She's not tolerating that shit. I don't know that we need to keep tolerating bad behavior either. There's a long history of the feminine tolerating the bad behavior of others. Oh, that's just locker room talk. Oh, they didn't mean it. Oh, you know what? It was actually my fault. The excusing of other people's bad behavior, that's got to stop too. Okay. But I digress. Let us start with receiving, because receiving is not weakness, it's feminine alignment. It's what's going to allow you to tap into your own energy of where you actually want to be. Okay. So when we're chasing after everything else, when we're doing everything for everybody else, we're giving away our energy and we don't have any left for what it actually is we need to do and create in the world. I had a stunning conversation with a woman a couple of weeks ago, and she's working with me to create her own business. I think she's got 3 kids, former military, difficult background. And she has dedicated her life in service to this country and now in service to her family. And she literally looked at me and she said, Alanna, I just want a little patch of grass that I can call my own. One of the things that the patriarchy has done for thousands of years is not allow us to own anything, even ourselves. And that's disempowerment. When we're doing things for everyone else, we're giving ourselves away. When we have the energy to do a thing for ourselves, own our little patch of grass, that's sovereignty. That's what makes us queens. And that receptivity is how we're going to do it, because that's how we become nourished. That's how we become energized. That's how we tap into that wellspring of life force energy that is our feminine birthright. And it is from that life force energy, from that wellspring, that we're able to create magic in the world. And I mean it. Like, if you think about how your womanly body works, not all of us will choose to be mothers, but we all have the power of creating something from almost nothing, creating a literal human life. And now, whether it's a literal human life or your own business or a new product or some philanthropic gift to the world, I don't care what it is, crocheting an Afghan, you're creating. That is you. They can't do it. Not like you can. But you got to have the space. You've got to be receiving, calling in the help you need, the receptivity, the abundance in order to create, make meaning and magic in the world. So that's the script. And now your homework, ladies, is to put it into practice. And what I'm going to want to hear from you inside of our Rooted membership is, how did it go? Because this is our space. So remember, there's a link here for you to join and get $20 off your monthly fee. This is your space to practice, okay? Because the way of the satisfied woman, it's only beginning. It's only beginning. We don't have thousands of years of legacy on how to do this. That's been their road, and we're no longer on their road. We want satisfaction on our terms, and that starts now. So we got to shift the dialogue. We got to practice. So when you decide to say, this is how I would feel if this action were complete, and then hold, let me hear about it. Who did you ask? What did you ask for? How was it received? Could you hold without collapsing? Where did the collapse come from? What was the fear that came up? All right, these are the things that we work with inside the Rooted membership, and it is my great honor and pleasure to have you inside that space with me. It's not just a membership, it's a movement. It's a movement, and I want you to be a part of it. So thank you so much for joining me for Rooted Radio. You know where the replays live, right inside the membership, and I will see you on the inside.